Hello, in this video I'm going to demonstrate how one can use the SMARTree client to do image analysis. So for this video I'm going to be showing one of the features within the client where you can import files, in this case images, and you can do image analysis. And for this particular exercise we're going to determine the fiber volume fraction and the void fraction of a number of images, and then save those files. And yeah, so this is the client, the SMARTree client, as you'd normally see it when it starts up. And typically, as I said, it's used for managing data and managing all these XML files, which is your data. So what we need to do is switch from the libraries or SMARTree window. We need to go over to the Files tab. So when you click on the Files tab, you'll see here this window changes and it allows you to add files right in here. So I'm going to do that now and pull in some files. So here's some images of some prepreg, and I'm going to load them in here. Once you click on them in here, it gives you a little preview of the image on the bottom left. In order for me to edit these, I need to take them from this little file browser here to the main SMARTree editor window. So I'm just going to pick one of these images, and if you see here, once again, I can pick them here and kind of get a preview. And they are brought into the client as image elements. There's a whole host of other types of elements you can have, but in this case we're just working with images. And now I'm just going to show you how you edit that. So to edit this image, you simply double click the image and it opens up an image editor as shown. So the image editor has a couple of different sections to it. The main one is your raw image, which is right here. This is the threshold image on the bottom, and you can see right now it's doing a pretty good job at thresholding the fibers. The top right shows you some statistical information about objects, and the bottom right is a contour plot of the threshold distribution. So we're not going to focus on those two for right now, so you can just move them over to the side. You can resize your both the window and your analysis window to make them roughly the same. So the first thing you're going to want to do is up here on the top left, there's some options, and what we're going to do is we're going to pick out this center section here, which is your the area of interest, because this sample was potted, so there's some void potted epoxy resin on top and bottom. We're not interested in that, so we are interested in the center. So what I'm going to do in this instance is click this box right here and just draw a box. And when you do so, you can see on the bottom that I'm actually thresholding just that area, and I can resize the box as needed. What you'll see in here is I'm right now making the threshold green, but you can make it with, there's a number of colors. Here it's showing the total threshold volume, that's of the entire image at 24%, and the region volume about 43%. So how do we make sure that's a good measurement? You know, because we're kind of zoomed out a little bit. But what you can do is you can click the zoom button up here, and we can zoom right into the area of interest. So we can zoom right in to look at these fibers, and you can see them right here fairly clearly. So if we're not happy with the threshold, there's a threshold bar over here on the left, and we can adjust the thresholding up or down ever so slightly. There's some numbers here, you can just increment it by 1. And once you're happy that you're saying, yes, I am really truly catching my fibers, you can then zoom right back out to the entire image, and that should be a fairly good measure of your fiber volume fraction in this particular instance. Sometimes these images do have gradients in color. If that's the case, you can click on this gradient button, and you can actually adjust the brightness and the darkness, and you can kind of see here now I'm going to be darkening the right hand side of my picture, and this will sometimes give you a better measure of your fiber volume fraction if you do have some sort of shadowing. And we can shadow from either side, top, bottom, left, or right, and that does a nice job of fixing the image prior to thresholding. So in here you see our fiber volume fraction of the entire area is about 40%. If I'm interested in looking at the voids, there's an option up here called fiber void, and what that simply does is just switch the thresholds around. So now instead of looking at the light objects, which in the previous case was fibers, now we're looking at voids. And once again, if you want to do a good job of really catching those voids, you can zoom right in here and you can see, yep, I'm doing a pretty good job just by itself. I may want to adjust it ever so slightly to see if I'm truly catching voids. So you can see there I'm doing a pretty good job. And based on what I see here, if I zoom back out into my overall image, I have about 1.6% voids in this particular image. If you wanted to change the shape of this threshold area, you can actually pick this rectangular button and draw a fresh box like so, because sometimes these images come in and they're not quite, you know, you may have some issues in terms of your sample is not quite square with your when you capture the image. So you can actually draw a box that actually you can rotate as well. And you can once again flip between looking at the fibers and the resin. So once again, I'm just going to start looking at my fibers. You can see down there, I think we were right around 41%, so you can see that, and you can switch back over to the voids again. So once you're happy with what you've got, you can then hit the save button. What that will do is it will save this actual image right here to an image in the same folder. So if you go here into your folder view, you will actually see that image right there is the one you just generated. So it's available for you right there. So you can actually save that as a report. And it's interesting because it'll also save the threshold number, the lower and upper bound, and the resulting fiber volume fraction, all within the file name as well. So it captures a snapshot of the settings that you use to capture that void fraction. So it's very easy to recreate as needed. So once you're done with that image, you can simply close the image, and you can also see in here the data that you just generated from that image is also attached to the file that you worked on, included with that, as well as the results that you got from that. So you can actually work through each one of these images and basically reduce the image and catch the final numbers in terms of your fiber volume and void volume. Another interesting feature here as well is if I look at the details, so there's a details button here under view. The details button actually if you look here, there's a thing called parameters, a column, and that is all the attributes of that image you just analyzed. Now you can see in the other ones you did not yet analyze those images, but what you can actually do in here, if you want, is you can actually copy, right click here, and then you can copy, and you can actually paste the parameters that you used for that particular image. So now what you're doing now is you can actually save all the conditions you used for that image and apply them to other images. So when you pull this image up, what it'll do is it'll attempt to use the same parameters. Now in this case, this image was a much brighter image, so it didn't do a very good job of applying those parameters. So you'd want to go in here again and do a reselection. You'd want to pick a new area, and you'd want to zoom in as before and see what numbers you get. But it is a way, if the images have a similar brightness, it does a pretty good job, as I said, of thresholding that data. Once again, this image was brighter than the other image, so you might have to go in here, reselect it again, and you can see in this particular instance, I am getting about 40%. Again, if you look at this image, you know, and zoomed in, you can sort of see the same sort of numbers for this particular material. So that's basically how the image analysis feature works. And you can then save this tree. This is a smart tree with all your data in here as well, once you save the results for each as a summary report. Thank you.